what are like the best things that represent these different countries where you think like, okay, good, this is something that I'd like to incorporate or where I can learn from?
Right. When it came to some of the other countries I competed with, it was beautiful to see how they incorporated their ethnicities and heritages into it. For example, the girl from Germany incorporated a German lullaby in one of her pieces, just to see how someone who like comes from a culture that originates a lot of the fairy tales that we know and love interpret a lullaby into, and it was a lullaby about the ocean and the waves, and I was like, wow, this is so gorgeous. I love to see how that influenced her style and her motives of dance, and then also the girl from Indonesia, she told a story specifically about a goddess that helped a king on land who then betrayed her by destroying the ocean. And that was wow. So beautiful to see how like she used her culture in that realm and allowed it to inspire a whole story, and was gorgeous. There was so much originality, and also even it almost spoke to the amount of mermaid culture that has been in each country. For example, the youngest mermaiding country to date that was involved in the competition was Australia. Australia has only been really mermaiding like for the past 2 years, like truly. And what's interesting is that Hannah Mermaid, one of the mermaids that we all cherish and love, is Australian, but she defected to the United States and has made her career out here in the US. But actually in Australia as a community, there's not a lot of mermaids out there. This mermaid who was just there, like it was the same deal. She was a diver and a free diver, but she didn't have all these like different products that we all have access to, because it's very difficult to get them shipped to Australia. Things like monofins and things like bra tops and stuff we take for granted, especially here in the US, since it's so readily available and we have so many creators and more and more popping up every day. All of her things were self-made. Like she made her she made her tail, she made all these things, and it was so beautiful to see the originality of something that hadn't come from something that we already like rely on. Like we always know what these tail creators that we buy from will do. They all have a certain style, and we assimilate our image of mermaiding to that, and that's beautiful, because in and of itself it gives us the opportunity to kind of make our dreams come true through the artistry of somebody else. But then for someone to say like, I don't have any of that, and this is what I think mermaiding is, here you go. Like it's just so crazy to see that beautiful originality come from someone who did something out of a need, but also influenced it from their own personal self.
Yeah, that's beautiful. By the way, to me, it felt like this competition came kind of out of the blue. How much time did you actually have to prepare?
So that's the thing. Karina, I really want there to be more time for me to prepare for some of these competitions, because both the King and Queen of the Seas and this Chinese competition gave me zero time to prep. It's funny because I guess I keep getting selected for things that have never happened before. So like the King and Queen of the Seas, like this is the first time that competition had ever happened, and I got the call to submit for it about a month before it happened, but it was only like arbitrary dates that were supposedly going to happen, maybe not. And then also when I submitted my application, they didn't announce it until 18 days before the competition. And the same thing happened here. I got an email from Patty saying, hello, like you've been recommended for this endeavor, and there's a competition in China. The dates are maybe this, and would you want to apply? If you want to apply, attach your resume and a couple photos. And I did. I just attached my resume, a couple photos, and they didn't tell me anything for another 2 weeks. And it was also just these things that like I was like, okay, I put the dates in my calendar, but I was like, it's getting really close to the point where like I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And then they messaged me literally 2 weeks before I was gonna go off to China. And not only that, China is very interesting in that there was a lot of things that I had to prep. When I was about to compete, they were talking about the rules, and they said, oh yeah, and you can't be naked on top. And I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like when I'm on top of the aquarium, I'll just wear a swimsuit. Like sometimes I do wear like a jock strap, which like is like a type of underwear that it has the butt like hanging out,
Yeah.
just so that it's easier for me to get in my silicone tail. So when they said don't be naked on top, I thought they meant don't be naked when you're on top of the aquarium, like
Yeah.
before you go in. But they're like, no, you can't be shirtless. And I was like,
how do you do that? But like, obviously in the water you're shirtless, but like all the time before you get in you're supposed to still have this, or what?
They meant that when I'm in the water I can't be shirtless, which is something I had never done before. I've never mermaided with something on my body, because they said that Chinese customs, you can't, like the men, it says it's inappropriate for children to see men shirtless. So I was like,
Oh.
what do I do? What do I do? And I was just thinking like, oh, there's, those like shirts that get like you have scales on them, or like rash guards or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I can do that, but I have 2 weeks. Like, what do I do? So I contacted my friend Merman Icarus, who's a beautiful art maker here in California. And I was like, I have 2 weeks and I need something. I need something to put on my body so that I can just compete. Like, is there something you can do? And he's so talented and he's so amazing. He was like, yeah, I can do it. And
Nice.
He made me this beautiful armor. It's like so ornate and gorgeous. And then also I couldn't show tattoos. So like this, I have one tattoo on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I do this? So I bought makeup, and then also the armor covered, like, so it was a 2-part thing. Like, but some of these contestants had a lot of tattoos, and it was really interesting to see the way that they covered their tattoos, just to make sure to be respectful to a culture that was hosting us. Every time I do these adventures that come out of the blue, they seem to be really awesome. And I'm very, very grateful to have a job that's flexible enough to give me that opportunity to go places that not a lot of people get to go, and just to be able to see a country I hadn't only dreamed about. I fell in love with it. The biggest thing though is the food. Oh my god. Oh my god. I made a point to like not eat any American food when I was there. I will be eating Chinese food every day, every meal, and I did, and it was just so good. If I lived in China, I would be obese. Like, I would be so big, because it was just like so delicious. And I just want to go back for the food.
I mean, if you managed to not be obese in the United States, I think you'd manage to be not like it in China.
That's true.
By the way, I'm curious, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm curious, like, especially if you have only that little time to prepare, flights must be super expensive. Does this get covered, or do you actually have to pay for that?
Yeah, I was very, very lucky to be sponsored by the competition in China. They covered all of my flights, all of my hotels, all of my food, everything. Yeah, I've been very fortunate in that realm. China was so welcoming. They covered everything. The only thing that they didn't cover was they covered one checked bag, and I had to do 2. So I ended up paying a lot of baggage fees around, which is why I was like at weight capacity. I was already like kind of crying that my bank account had like, I was paying so much money to carry around a freaking tail bag. So that when they had this, I was like, oh man. Like, can you send me this in the mail? Like, please. But it's fine. We're here. We're back. Nice. We're happy, and it changed my life. Like, it really did. I have a new set of eyes for the mermaiding art and sport. A big future hope for what the future of the mer community is. Because I think that it's so wonderful that the more and more that I am in this community, it's just you get different forms of it, and it's becoming this beautiful, big, and complex thing. You have your people who do the recreation, like, right? They put on a tail to have fun, to take photos, to hang out. And then you have people who are performers, right? They're entertainers, either on land or in an aquarium. So you have different skills there. Either you have to be very good with people, or you have to be very good underwater. And then you start getting your people who are your teachers, right? The people who instruct. And then after that, you get people who are now becoming more and more athletic. So there's the athleticism, in the endurance, in the depth, in all this other stuff. And then there's another type of performer, this new type that I didn't even think was possible, this performance athlete that China now has presented. And I think that all of us who came were tasked with spreading the message that China like had this new future thing, that China is not only hoping that they can increase and make better, but also that other countries can do the same, so that together we can level up this respected sport of mermaiding, and maybe we can all host each other. Like someday, the U.S. will be hosting China at their competition, and the best from China can come here and compete with us. Just not only compete in the sense of like making a winner, but also to do this would happen, which was like this melding of cultures, this inspiration, this leveling up. Because we don't all have to be the same, but at the same time, it's beautiful when people like show off what we can do and what has been possible back 10 years ago with a mermaid tail, and how people saw us as a community, to now us being respected athletes that are being flown across the world. I think it's something that serves to say that dreams do come true, especially when you work hard and you give a lot of energy and effort to it.
That sounds like a beautiful ending sentence. One thing that I'm also just curious, if you think about like politically, China and USA are so far apart, and I mean we're at a difficult point in time, I think, when it comes to right now. How do you think the mermaiding community can actually help connecting these dots and like the people that are actually in these countries?
You're right. When I was there was no sense of political division. The Chinese government put on this competition. This was the first Chinese government sanctioned competition. There were people from the Chinese government who came, smiled at me, welcomed me, danced with me, celebrated with me, and congratulated me for a whole week. There was no longer these divides, more than it was the shared unity, or that we can connect people through water and through water movement. It doesn't have to be with a tail. I think that people can see that there's so much more in common we have as human beings and as mermaids than political lines divide. And it serves to understand that sometimes governments don't represent the views of everybody. And maybe a select few in a higher power might have issues with each other, but it doesn't dictate what human beings and what mermaids can do together when we put away international boundaries. And it actually serves to say that the more that we can talk, the more we can compete in these spaces that are for everybody, is the moment when we become more a united world, because the water is the one thing that connects us all.
That's so true. That's another beautiful ending statement. I'll take that one. This was a beautiful insight into how your experience was in China. Thank you so much for sharing this. Again, congratulations.
Thanks, Karina.